Oh, there we go. Now I have a microphone. It's still Dan and Amy, but we just have microphones now, and that's helpful. So Donald Trump yesterday, after his meet with Bibi Netanyahu, they presented themselves to the assembled press, asked a number of questions, including on the departure of General Flynn as Trump's national security advisor, and President Trump had this to say.
Michael Flynn, General Flynn, is a wonderful man. I think he's been treated very, very unfairly by the media, as I call it, the fake media in many cases. And I think it's really a sad thing that he was treated so badly. I think in addition to that, from intelligence, papers are being leaked, things are being leaked. It's criminal act, and it's been going on for a long time before me, but now it's really going on. And people are trying to cover up for a terrible loss that the Democrats had under Hillary Clinton. I think it's very, very unfair what's happened to General Flynn, the way he was treated, and the documents and papers that were illegally, I stress that, illegally leaked.
Well, so the issue is it's more than unfair, potentially. It's potentially illegal activity, and potentially activity that is illegal and endangers national security if you have an enemy inside your perimeter problem at CIA, for example. And this that comment is in response in part to a story in the Wall Street Journal today about spies keeping intelligence from Trump because they're afraid that that information will be leaked. For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by our friend, Congressman Adam Kinzinger from Illinois' 16th Congressional District. Adam, thanks for joining us.
You bet, thanks.
So what about what Trump had to say, not just about Flynn on a personal level in the media, but about the intelligence community leaking, and then this story in the Journal today about potentially withholding information from the president? This seems to be troubling.
Yeah, it's kind of troubling all around. From what I understand with the Wall Street Journal story, the issue isn't more holding back intelligence; it's holding back how it was gathered. And frankly, even when I get high-level intel briefings, they won't tell you their sourcing or methods, not because we're not cleared to that information. We are, but in many cases, there's just no reason to tell. And so I think that's part of it. Yeah, in terms of the leaks, this is a huge problem. And part of the issue right now is, frankly, the administration has been very slow at putting people in place. Part of that is, the high-level folks, the Senate Democrats are not working to get these guys in place in time. But the other thing is they're way behind on some of the lower-level folks. And so you have, I think, a lot of Obama holdovers, frankly, that are still there. And my guess, and I don't know, this is just merely speculation, is that one of those kind of holdovers that seek to embarrass Donald Trump, but maybe they have a concern, I don't know, are leaking it. It's a big problem. And then just briefly on his comments about Flynn. Look, I don't think the sin was necessarily in Flynn talking to the Russians. I think it was highly inappropriate, but I don't think that was necessarily a sin or illegal. What became the crime was the cover-up and the follow-up where Flynn said it never happened. They lied to the vice president. The vice president went on the Sunday show. And frankly, an honorable man, Mike Flynn, did the honorable thing by resigning.
So Donald Trump, his opposition party now seems to be the media. And it's just getting so tiresome, him keep calling out fake media. It's the fake media. Do you think that there's fake media, fake news reports out there? Do you think CNN is fake?
No, and it's going to tick some people off when I say it. Look, the media has a very important constitutional role to play. And frankly, to any president, and I wish they'd have done this way more on President Obama, but to any president, I think the media has to be kind of a aggressive party against it. I mean, that's the way we hold our government accountable. And so I think to continually say that is doing a disservice. I mean, look, he's a unique guy. He can say things. He's got his reasons, kind of work for him now. But I think having a aggressive media in opposition is actually very important. But I don't think there's anything wrong, by the way, with calling out extreme media bias. I think there is no doubt that you turn on some of these news networks and there's absolute bias out there, and I think that's okay to call out.
Yeah, I mean, the suspension of journalistic standards has been most, I think, persuasively documented by Michael Wolff. No, part of the vast right-wing conspiracy, a Vanity Fair, Hollywood Reporter, Newsweek columnist. who has documented what the New York Times has become, what the New Yorker has become. These legitimate journalists from a bygone era talking about the everything is anonymously sourced.
Yep.
And, it becomes a bit troubling. I understand anonymous sources need to be used, names need to be withheld, sources protected, of course. But the whole kind of posture of the media, and then layering on the lack of verification and the number of stories that these big Eastern Seaboard outlets have gotten totally wrong, that were totally incorrect. There's a basis, not to say the whole organization is fake news or something like this, but that the suspension of standards leads you to report things that aren't true.
Yeah, and frankly, to be honest, Dan, my belief in the free market is that a lot of the times this kind of stuff can shake itself out. And my hope, I don't know if we ever get there, but my hope is that people are going to get tired of bias at all levels, and there's going to be a market for just a fair reporting of the news again. I mean, look, there's no doubt Donald Trump has done some strange things, said some strange things, and he's very unique, and so there's a lot of stuff that he can make news on. But there's also the fact that he's not from a foreign policy perspective. I look at Donald Trump and say every move he has made is exactly what I think is the right move to reclaim our role in the world when President Obama let it go for 8 years. And you don't see any good news about that. It's always just kind of the issue du jour.
Right. I mean, buried yesterday was SecDef Mattis telling fellow NATO members that, no longer can the American taxpayer carry a disproportionate share of the defense of Western values. He told the NATO alliance's other 27 defense ministers yesterday. So, that's putting a marker down.
Yep. And his best line was, he goes, "The American people cannot care for your children more than you do."
Yeah.
And it was just like, wow. And so he sent a tough message to NATO, but also a very supportive message. We are committed to NATO. We've been very aggressive against Russia under President Trump. We've definitely pushed back against Iran under President Trump. Same with China, North Korea, and everything else. So, look, he's done a lot of great things. He can be sometimes his own worst enemy on Twitter, but, at the same time, folks need to start reporting on some good things, too.
All right, back to the alleged leaks. I mean, Republicans, your colleague Chaffetz wants to have an investigation, but they want to investigate the leak. But what about the contacts between Trump officials and Russia officials during the campaign?
Yeah,
or is that more fake news?
I think if you're going to investigate the leaks, you got to investigate the broader issue, which is the Russia issue too. Rand Paul the other day made the unfortunate statement of Republicans should not be investigating other Republicans. Well, look, our job is not to be concerned with what party we are; it's to be concerned with our country. I think an investigation of what happened with Mike Flynn, some of the broader context of Russia and Trump, would actually is probably going to happen, and it should happen in the Intelligence Committee. But and I think within those Intelligence Committees, we ought to also figure out where these leaks are coming from. And frankly, that's up to the administration too, to figure out where there's where the leaks are in their administration, and I think they're going to be on that. But every administration has always had leaks. This is just a little out of control right now.
I want to get to some economic policy questions, most notably because there's some uneasiness. We talked to Steve Moore yesterday, some impatience about tax reform being put on the back burner. When are we going to see cuts to the corporate and personal income tax to spark a little bit of economic growth in the country?
Well, look, my hope is soon. My hope is before we leave. It's hard to predict a date, but definitely before we leave for August recess, you're going to have a package hopefully up and out, which is actually amazingly quick. Here's the problem, though. I mean, in tax reform, there's always going to be somebody that doesn't like something in tax reform. And, for instance, we're talking about a border adjustment tax, which in totality is actually what every other country does, and I frankly don't think it's a bad thing. But there are, senators now who are saying, it may hurt our retailers, so we don't want a border adjustment tax. So this is a nuanced process, but I got to tell you, Paul Ryan, the Republicans, including myself, are committed to saying this is extremely important. Bring the overall rate down. Now, Illinois, by the way, is a completely different thing. Illinois is getting ready to raise your taxes and not reform anything.
Yes.
And frankly, the governor's done a great job of holding out and saying we have to have reforms, but Illinois is in a tough position.
He's done a great job of holding out right up until he stopped holding out with yesterday's budget address, in my view. But We'll pick that up another time. He's Congressman Adam Kinzinger, Republican from the 16th Congressional District. Adam, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Anytime. Thanks, guys. Take care.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.